Well, good evening. It's Neil Baldock from Charles David Casson Estate and Letting Agents here in Chelmsford, and we have a lot of conversation with landlords over whether they should self-manage their properties or have them managed by a professional letting agent. And a lot of people think, oh well, I'll just manage it myself because I know an electrician or I know a plumber, etc. And that's the perception of what property management is. Now, to be honest, that may have been the case some sort of 20 years ago, but it's certainly no longer the case in 2019. In fact, we've got over 170 pieces of legislation within the private rented sector, and it feels like at the minute it's almost sort of month on month increasing. So the most recent one, which was the 1st of June 2019, the tenant fee ban, but that actually has a whole host of implications for not just agents but also landlords in terms of how you hold people's holding deposits. It caps the amount of deposit you can take off them. It means if you're renewing a tenancy who might have been with you for years, if you actually sign a new agreement, that's a new tenancy under this new act, and you have to refund some of their deposit because you can only have a 5-week deposit. Have you heard of the Deregulation Act and the 5 documents that you have to serve at the start of each tenancy? And if you don't do that, you can't serve a Section 21, which is how you get possession of your property. We've got the deposit regulations, but did you know that if just protecting the deposit isn't enough, because that's the bit that people generally do know? Oh yes, we have to protect deposits since 2015. Did you know you have to serve a document called the prescribed information, and also along with that goes a set of terms and conditions, and unless you've complied with all of that, then you haven't complied. And there's fines for obviously all of these breaches. If you breach them, there's heavy fines. But not only that, the main problem is most of this legislation is designed that if you don't comply with it, you can't get possession of your property back. So there's been some recent case law, in fact, that somebody didn't protect their deposit and didn't serve the prescribed information properly. So not only were they liable for a fine of 3 times the deposit plus the tenant's costs, which could be a substantial amount of money, they also can't serve a Section 21. And we've also had situations where, I'm seeing case law where people haven't served a gas safety certificate at the start, which is part of the Deregulation Act. And if you haven't done that and you can't prove you served that, then again, you can't serve a Section 21. And none of this is, once it's done, it's done. You can't go back from it, is what the courts are saying. So it's a real problem. So, you need someone professional. Yes, you can write your own will and do it online, but would you want to take that risk of not having your assets properly protected and your loved ones cared for and properly protected by having a solicitor do your will? Probably not, or at least a qualified professional. Yes, you can do your own divorce online, but would you want to do it without professional advice? Would you want to risk not tying up your finances properly and later on the line somebody comes along and takes your child's inheritance away? No, you probably wouldn't. There's lots of things you can do yourself, there's lots of things you can do online, but can you do them properly? And do you know, or do you have enough time to know 170 pieces of legislation? I would suggest the answer is probably not, unless it's your job. And that is what a letting agent is for. So if you're managing property yourself, if you've had tenants in it for many years and it's all been fine, there's so many ways that you can get caught out now. My advice is seek professional advice. Everything in lettings is about seeking professional advice now, and if you wanted to have a chat with me, I'd be more than happy to give you some advice, but I don't want to see landlords get caught out by not serving one document or not protecting a deposit within the correct timescale, and then ultimately not being able to get their property back. Because we have seen emails flying around, the ambulance chaser type emails, the old PPI claim type emails, which are now coming into the letting industry, and we are seeing legal companies starting to approach tenants proactively and tout for business in terms of prosecuting landlords. So if you're a landlord, if you didn't know these things, get in touch with us.